So this reviews the first exam for Math 126. So it's going to start with equations. So the first section will be section 7.2. So the first question we're seeing is solve the equation. So 7b minus 6 is equal to 9b. Remember, these are the steps for solving equations. Simplify each side of the equation, remove parentheses, combine like terms. So if I look at this equation, notice that the left side is this 7b minus 6. There's not any parentheses, and the 7b and the negative 6 are not like terms, so that's considered simplified. The right side of the equation just has a 9b, so that's simplified. So once we've done that, our next step is, if the variable is on both sides, I use the phrase pick on the little guy, and we use what's called a zero pair for that. So again, the variable is this b. Notice how the b is on the left side of the equation, that's on the right side of the equation. So it is on both sides of the equation. So the strategy is to pick on the little guy. So for me, the 7b and the 9b, the 7b is the little guy. So my first step is to use a zero pair, which means I want to use something with the opposite sign. So the opposite of a 7b, what I do is I add a negative 7b, or subtract 7b, if you will, and I add a negative 7b over here. So remember, that's the property of equality. Whatever you do one side, you have to balance it with the other side. So then I draw a little line, and then I simplify. Well, 7b and negative 7b will zero out, so we just mark them out. That leaves me a negative 6 on the left side of the equation. 9b and negative 7b, that's just going to be 2b. So I have that equation. A lot of times I like to have the b on the left-hand side of the equation, I should say. So I want to rewrite this as 2b is equal to negative 6. So again, 2b equals negative 6. You should be able to see that answer is negative 3 at this point. Again, if you can't see that solution, what we want to do here, notice how there's not a constant. All there really is a coefficient of this 2. We want to make that coefficient a 1. So we divide each side by the 2, since that's the coefficient. And then if we simplify, 2 divided by 2 is going to be 1b, or we just write that as b. And then negative 6 divided by 2, that would be a negative 3. So our solution is going to be then negative 3. So negative 3 would be our solution. So we didn't have to worry about the step 5, really even step 3. There wasn't a constant. And step 5 says when the variable drops out of the equation, follow these steps. Well, the variable didn't drop out of the equation, so it's still here. So the next equation we have is 12y minus 7 is equal to 4y plus 9. So remember, the steps are above. So we have these steps to go through again. The first step says simplify each side of the equation. So what we're looking for is, if there's any parentheses, remove them. If there's combined like terms, combine the like terms. So if I look at this equation, the left side of the equation, I have a 12y and a negative 7. There's not any parentheses, and 12y and a negative 7 are not like terms. So what we do then is look to the right side, and we have this 4y plus 9. So notice that those aren't like terms either. So the first step is already done. We don't have to do anything. So the next step is, if the variable's on both sides, pick on the little guy using a zero pair. So if I look at this equation, notice how there is a 12y and a 4y. So notice that y is our variable, and that variable is on both sides. The little guy, I would identify as that 4y. So what I would do is subtract 4y over here, or in other words, add a negative 4y, and I would add a negative 4y over here, or again, subtract 4y, whichever way you like to look at it. It means the same thing. So 12y lose 4y would give me 8y. The negative 7 comes down. The 4y and the negative 4y zero out. That's that zero pair. And then that leaves us a 9. So we got the variable now on one side of the equation. So step 3 says make the constant 0 using a zero pair. Notice again, our goal is to get y by itself. So the negative 7 is the constant. We want to get rid of the negative 7 by using the zero pair. So I add a 7 as long as I add a 7 to the other side of the equation. In doing so, we want to simplify. The negative 7 and the 7 will zero out. So it's going to leave me an 8y and 9 plus 7 would be 16. So we got to that point. Now you can probably see the answer. 8 times what is 16? That would be 2. But again, if I follow the steps, we want to divide by the coefficient to make it 1. So if I want to make that 8 turn into 1, I have to divide by that coefficient. So the property of equality says if you divide each side by 8, that's going to help us out there. So let's say 8 divided by 8 is going to be 1, and 1y would just be y. And 16 divided by 8 would be 2. So our solution would be y equals 2. So if I look at this third equation, I have -2 times the quantity x plus 6 equals -20. A lot of times I use the word the quantity. That means something's going to be in parentheses. So again, since we do have parentheses here, one of the strategies is to go ahead and multiply through the parentheses. So I use what's called the distributive property there to remove the parentheses. So -2 times x, we just write that as -2 times x or -2x. And -2 times the positive 6 would be then a -12. And then that's going to leave us with this -20. So now I notice that the variable is not on both sides on this one. It's just on one side. So all I really got to do at this point is get x by itself. So I want to go after the constant, which is this -12. And the zero pair of a -12 would be adding a 12. So I'd add a 12 to each side of the equation. In doing so, the -12 and the 12 will zero out. That's that zero pair. So -2x would come down equals, and then -20 plus 12. Since the signs are different, that's a subtraction problem. So 20 minus 12 would be 8. And you keep the sign of the larger one, which is actually, it's more negative. So that would be a -8. So again, you could probably see the answer as a positive 4 at this point. But again, if I want to get rid of the coefficient, to get rid of the -2, I want to divide each side by the coefficient, divide each side by the -2. And doing so, the -2 will divide out, turns into a 1. So x is going to equal then, and we know that a negative divided by negative is a positive. 8 divided by 2 would be 4, and therefore x would equal 4. That would be my solution. So I'll pause there and I'll reset for another set of videos.